Hello there. Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the show. Appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on 740 KVOR, on Extra Sports 1300, or either one of those two stations' apps, which are free to download and free to use and are sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. And as always, love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. We got a question of the day fired up. Get to that soon. But again, a lot of soon, Ray, not now. Producer Ray Dominguez in studio. And hopefully I'll hear from you over the course of the program. I want to start with the Colorado Avalanche as they played last night. They'll play again today, by the way, at 5 o'clock. So we'll keep an eye on that. We got Nuggets on Extra Sports 1300. More on that in a moment. But the Avs right now, we have seen arguably three of their worst performances of the year in just the last 2 weeks. They had the 7-3 loss to Nashville, another 7-3 loss to Philadelphia, and last night their 5-2 loss to Ottawa. Now, take into account that the last two goals were empty netters by Ottawa. That's the margin of defeat is not really what matters here. What matters here is that the Colorado Avalanche, and even if you are unfamiliar with this team, if you even have a cursory knowledge, the fact that the Avs had only 8 shots through 2 periods, you should be like, that doesn't sound right. The Avs only had 8 shots on goal in the first 2 periods against Ottawa. That is, you can't have that. Like, the one thing that the Avs should be able to do every night, even if they're bad shots, is get shots off. And they couldn't last night. And it was a bad loss. Bad loss for the Colorado Avalanche. Here's their head coach, Jared Bednar, on what was wrong with his team in that 5-2 loss.
Yeah, flat, almost the whole team. I don't want to group everyone into that because it's not accurate, but the bulk of our team, flat.
They were flat, in case Jared Bednar didn't make that abundantly clear to you. So the question becomes why? Why are they flat last night? Why have we seen easily the roughest stretch of Avs hockey all season? And I know, like, look, that's a very low bar to clear, considering that the Avs still have put together an amazing first part of the season heading into the Olympic break. But this is unequivocally the worst stretch of hockey we've seen this team play. So why? I think there are a few potential reasons. One, natural regression. It's an 82-game season. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And the fact that the Avalanche lost twice in 40 games because you get to overtime, that's a tie. Even if you throw in the shootout losses and all that kind of stuff, you're talking 9 times in 40 games. But 2 regulation losses in 40 games. It was, I think, inevitable that the Colorado Avalanche were going to go through a rough patch. Because you can't play that level of hockey and win at that clip for an 82-game season. So I think that's part of the issue here. Second factor, the Olympic break. And the Avs aren't the only team maybe peeking ahead to Italy, which is coming up in 2 weeks. But the Avalanche have 8 players on their roster that are going to play in Italy. And 7 of them, with all due respect to Yoel Kiviranta, are core players for the Colorado Avalanche, are the guys that on a night-to-night basis you look to first and foremost to produce for the Avalanche. 7 core players, all dealing with everything that comes along with going to Olympics. The excitement, how eager they are, plans are their families coming out, and then the natural thing that comes with an all-star break or the postseason. We see when there is kind of an end in sight, whether it's the end of the season or the end of the first half, and there's a break coming up, and you start to maybe take your eye off the ball a little bit. But Ottawa could have very well. I mean, Brady Tkachuk looked pretty locked in, and is the most important player on Team USA. But again, the volume. 8 guys on this Avs roster are going over to Italy. And the third factor, and I think this is the most important one, and is playing into what we are seeing more than the other two. The injuries. In particular. One is Devon Toews. You look at those games I mentioned, 7 goals they allowed against Nashville. They allow 7 more against Philly. They allow 5. 3 of them were not into an empty net. But this team is missing their defensive stopper. The guy that puts an end to the other team being in the Av zone. So his defense, being a true defensive defenseman, his absence is hurting the Colorado Avalanche right now. And I think the other injury that certainly plays into Jared Bednar saying flat, 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 I think they miss Gabriel Landeskog. Gabriel Landeskog, their captain, their leader. And I said this early on in the season because the Avs were in a position where they kept winning, and even the games they didn't win, they battled back. And just one thing Jared Bednar had said was that they were just a team that was never out of it. They never just said, all right, tonight's not our night, move on to tomorrow. They kept battling, and that's part of the reason why they lost just twice in regulation in their first 40 games. But the guy who was in the lineup for the majority of those 40 games I mentioned was Gabriel Landeskog. And given what he has gone through, to say nothing of the fact that he wears the captain's C, which is significant, unlike in some other sports where it's more ceremonious and just for show. Like wearing the C on a hockey sweater means something. But beyond that, these players who are out there and maybe getting it in their head like, you know what, tonight's just not our night. Last game of a road trip or first game of a road trip or, tough travel, whatever it might be. Yeah, I'm just not feeling it tonight. Then you look over and you see number 92 and you understand that it has taken him years, not weeks, not months, years to get back out on the ice with you to have a chance to win another Stanley Cup. How could you possibly let your stuff affect how locked in you are? How could you say, you know what? tonight's not, take it for granted that there's another game tomorrow. How can you do that when you're on the ice with Gabriel Landeskog, when you're on the bench with him, when you're in the locker room with him? And when Jared Bednar is saying that his team didn't have energy and they were flat, I think that's something Gabriel Landeskog helps. Because if he sees it, he's not going to stand for it. He's going to say something. He's going to fire up the guys. So in the number of goals that the Avs have conceded in some of these losses, I think you can look primarily at Devon Toews. But when the head coach says it's effort, it's energy, it's want to, I think that's where not having Gabriel Landeskog, I think that's what a symptom of that could be. So, you know, we've seen when he's been out over the last couple of years that the Avs have gone through stretches like this. They've had nights like last night where they just didn't have it, despite, and I know they're a little bit banged up. They're a lot of bit banged up, honestly. Still have McKinnon, still have Makar, have Nichushkin. He scored a goal last night. Brock Nelson. Like, they're not hurting for talent in any of these games, even if they're not at full strength. But we've seen games like this and stretches like this when Gabriel Landeskog has been out over the last couple of years. Because there just isn't that other voice, maybe the most important voice, to fire up the boys, to get them ready to go, to keep them locked in. Jared Bednar obviously has some responsibility in that. Nathan McKinnon does as well, but it's different. Like, there's a reason, and at the time when Gabriel Landeskog was given that C, I thought it was little more than a publicity stunt. Just, hey, this is about the only guy that we can parade to our fan base. Because if you remember, the Avs were so terrible when Gabriel Landeskog first came into the league that they went, all right, this 19-year-old, he's going to be our captain. We got to have a captain, somebody. So they gave him that C. And I don't know how much of it was actually seeing what he could become. I want to give a lot of credit to Gabriel Landeskog. I think he grew into that. I think he took that seriously. Even if he did not maybe deserve it when he first got it, he decided that I'm going to make sure that there's no reason for this C to ever come off of my sweater. I'm going to grow into the leader that this team needs me to be. He's one of the best captains in the league because of it. So the dynamics that are at play on a hockey team, the guy that wears the C, that's a voice that everybody listens to. It's a coach on the ice, if you will. Because Jared Bednar can only yell from the bench so much, can only call so many timeouts. There are only 2 intermissions. You need a guy on the bench, on the ice with these guys, a peer. And that's what Gabriel Landeskog is. So I watched this team play last night, and the player that I thought they were missing more than anybody else is Gabriel Landeskog. So having him back would help avoid a similar stretch as this once the Olympics are over. And Gabriel Landeskog practiced with the team on Tuesday, which was not only a positive sign for him playing for Sweden in the Olympics, but also a positive sign that his return to the ice for the Avs is imminent. Again, 2 weeks. They play tonight against Montreal. No Gabriel Landeskog tonight. but they got a couple more games before they head off to Italy. If I'm the Avalanche, maybe that last game, get him back out there. He may want to have be facing live bullets before, so to speak, before he goes over to the Olympics. But I think if you're the Avalanche, you say, well, we're going to have this guy back on the other side. And it will be good. And look, even with all of that, the Avs are 9 points up with 3 games in hand on Minnesota in the Central Division. Because of that 40-game stretch, they have so much breathing room, it's ridiculous. Now, don't squander it. Again, no reason to relax about it. But that's what their torrid start to the season gives you, is you can go through a stretch like this and still look at the standings the next day and go, okay, not time to panic, but this is a team with higher aspirations than simply winning their division, right? They'll want to get locked back in and back at it tonight in Montreal against the Canadiens. That game drops the puck at 5, so we'll keep an eye on it when we get to hour number 3. Take your thoughts on the Avs, 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll talk about their Ball Arena roommates, because tonight is one of the more significant nights on the calendar for the Denver Nuggets. That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. It's not every day that a basketball team can welcome back a member of a championship team to the place that they won the title in. But that is the case, especially when you have a history like the Denver Nuggets. Don't know why I felt the need to take a shot there, but I'm just pointing out facts here. Tonight, the Denver Nuggets will host Michael Porter Jr. and the Brooklyn Nets. And I do expect there to be a video tribute and a standing ovation for Michael Porter, because this is not, and I was trying to go back and think of other significant returns to Denver for Nuggets players. I mean, again, speaking to the history of the Denver Nuggets, there aren't a lot of people that would elicit an emotional response. Carmelo was a negative emotional response for good reason, right? He demanded the trade and all that kind of stuff. I didn't expect Nuggets fans to do anything other than boo Carmelo. Dikembe Mutombo would be another one. So there just haven't been, Chauncey Billups, but he would get an ovation regardless, just because he got ovations before he even played for the Denver Nuggets because of his ties to. So there just haven't been many of these. There are for, other, like the Avs, because of their more storied history, and the Nolan Arenado return comes to mind for the Rockies, and certainly there were other beloved Rockies players that returned, just not that many for the Denver Nuggets. And the fact that Michael Porter Jr. was traded means there should be no animus towards him. The team traded him. He didn't leave. But I was talking with Ray about this earlier today, because, and maybe it was as we were trying to figure out a highlight or something to talk about Michael Porter. And I think the fact that, well, let me just throw the question out and then I'll pause for a moment, let you think, and then I'll continue. What was the Michael Porter game? What was the Michael Porter moment from his time with the Denver Nuggets? Pause. I don't know that there was one. I mean, certainly there are games that are like, I think Michael Porter put up like 30 in a game before, but like two moments in particular that Ray brought up. So game one last year against the Lakers, Michael Porter hit a 3 to tie that game. The next time down the floor, Jamal Murray hits a game winner at the buzzer. Last year against OKC, who's the player that everyone was talking about playing through injury to be there for his team for that game 7? It was Aaron Gordon. But guess who also was battling through injury to be there for his team in that game 7? It was Michael Porter. When you think of the title run, it's obviously the heroics of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. But in those moments in lies Michael Porter's legacy as a Denver Nugget. And it was perfect considering his role with the team. He was never on the main stage. He was a hero in games, but he was never the hero. Because of his role with the Denver Nuggets, he was in this box. And it was weird. Nobody wanted to come out of the box, but then when he wasn't doing more than that, people would criticize him. But his role with the Denver Nuggets, despite his talent, was so minimal compared to what it is now with Brooklyn that it just didn't give way to many memorable games and moments for Michael Porter. But I think what time, and it hasn't been a long time, but there's been some time, I think there is a greater appreciation with the struggles that Cam Johnson had at the beginning of the season to be like, you know what? Michael Porter kind of took on a difficult role. Probably capable of more, clearly capable of more, given what he's doing with Brooklyn right now. I mean, easily his best year of his career is this year right now. But like Cam Johnson, kind of the same way. He was, the third guy? And really, you could argue that he was the second most talented player behind, Devin Booker when that Phoenix team went to the NBA Finals. So, like Cam Johnson is having had trouble at the beginning of the season trying to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do here? Okay, we got the two-man game, and we got Aaron Gordon over here, and he has a clearly defined role. And Christian Brown is somewhat limited in what he can do, so he's got to be able to do his thing. What am I supposed to do here? And that's the struggle that Michael Porter faced the entirety of his time in Denver. And imagine the struggle when you're as talented as Michael Porter is. So because of that, he became kind of the scapegoat, the popular punching bag for anything that went wrong with the Denver Nuggets. And I'm talking about externally, but I'm also talking about internally. I think Michael Malone took out his frustrations on Michael Porter a lot. So he was just in this situation where he couldn't be the hero, but he could be the GOAT. And not GOAT like Michael Jordan, Tom Brady GOAT. Like GOAT, like you're what's wrong with this team. You're why we lost. Which is such a weird thing because he's the fourth most important player on the court for the Denver Nuggets. How could he not impact winning but impact losing? Right? Never got credit for the Denver Nuggets winning anything. But when the Nuggets lost things, Michael Porter was one of the first names that got brought up. And I think there will be a fair amount of people at Ball Arena tonight that have that realization and will give him the ovation that he deserves. Look, this is not, again, part of the reason why it's not like Dikembe Mutombo or one of these other players is because Michael Porter just did not have that massive impact. I was trying to think of a Broncos comparison. So if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is Malik Jackson from the Super Bowl 50 team, right? A guy that certainly helped, but you lost him immediately, and the thought was, oh, they'll be okay. Right? That Malik Jackson, when he went to the Jaguars, was kind of that guy. That was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Now Porter's gone. What was his role with that Denver Nuggets team? Could it be like CJ Anderson? Not Payton, not Vaughn, not DeMarcus Ware, not the no-fly zone, not like you start to go down the list of the players that were the reason why the Denver Broncos won a Super Bowl that year. And then you would eventually get to CJ Anderson, but that's not to say that CJ Anderson wasn't important. And CJ Anderson at least has a moment, right? In the snow. Here we go. Another snow game against the New England Patriots, and C.J. Anderson runs down the sideline for a game-winning touchdown. Michael Porter doesn't even have that, doesn't even have a moment, but I think that would be the comparison I would make. It would take you a little bit before you got to C.J. Anderson, but you know that C.J. Anderson was a big part of the success of the team. And I think that's Michael Porter. Now, C.J. Anderson didn't get criticized as much as Michael Porter, but just saying, like, is there a world where the Denver Broncos win a Super Bowl without C.J. Anderson? With all due respect, probably. Is there a world where the Denver Nuggets win that NBA title without Michael Porter? Probably. But he was a part of it, and he contributed to the Denver Nuggets in the bubble and other playoff runs. But our question today, and I'm quite proud of it. Usually Ray comes up with the questions of the day because he's better at this than I am. I like this one. Who's happier, the Denver Nuggets or Michael Porter? Because in hindsight, and we're not so far down the road that maybe hindsight would even, come into play. But right now, it's a win-win. That trade was a win-win. Michael Porter did the thing where he sacrificed to win a title. The thing that we tell people going from a bad team to a good team to do. Well, you got to sacrifice. You're not going to be able to do as much. Michael Porter came into that situation. They had Murray. They had Jokic. They got Aaron Gordon. Like, Michael Porter, we know you're talented. Sorry, they're more important people, and you got to sacrifice. And now he goes to a place in Brooklyn where he looks around and he's like, I'm the most talented guy here. And there's no expectation of winning. And I can go out and I can show everybody that I was in this box in Denver. I was not being fully utilized. And he showed it the last time these two teams played. It was like, what, 27, 11, and 5 or something he put up against the Denver Nuggets in Brooklyn? So for Michael Porter, it's a win because he got the ring. He did this sacrificing thing for the greater good. Now he's going to get his. And then you have the Nuggets on the other side that by trading Michael Porter, they opened up cap space. They were able to bring in Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway, and they have created maybe the best team top to bottom that the Denver Nuggets have ever had. So the Nuggets are happy, and Michael Porter's happy. They're both better off. So we'll see what he does tonight. I mean, what he did in Brooklyn was pretty impressive, but I think for him, those competitive juices are certainly flowing, and he might want to have an even bigger night tonight back in Denver in front of the home fans. And Michael Porter doesn't strike me as somebody who, holds grudges. That's not what this is about. This is about the natural motivation that athletes go to and say, you didn't want me. I'm going to show you. All athletes do it. Even if it was the most amicable breakup in the history of sports, they still are like, they didn't want me. So I expect Michael Porter to play well tonight. And I expect him to get I'm very interested in the video, the tribute video. Because I think I'll be going, oh, yeah, I remember. There wasn't a moment or a game with Michael Porter. But he helped. And he deserves recognition for that. Nuggets and Nets tonight, 7 o'clock on Extra Sports 1300. 719-247-1313 if you want to weigh in. Who's happier, Nuggets or Michael Porter? Coming up next, the perfect chaser to the news about Bill Belichick's Hall of Fame snub. There's another piece of Hall of Fame intel that has come out. Kind of balances out the universe, if you're asking me. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Speaking of Aaron Gordon, I wasn't going to get to this, but because Aaron Gordon is bringing us back into this segment, you know how it seems to be one guy comes back and then another guy leaves. With both the Avalanche and the Nuggets, who have had a fair amount of injury problems lately, it always seems to be one in, one out, right? They get a guy back, and then a game or two later, someone else gets hurt. Well, with the Denver Nuggets, it's like they're getting no one back and more people are getting hurt, or someone's going to be out for even longer. To wit, the team announced just a little while ago, officially, that Aaron Gordon sustained a right hamstring strain on Friday at the Milwaukee Bucks. Gordon will be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. And if you recall, a lot of people were asking David Adelman, questioning whether Aaron Gordon was right to come back, because I got a text from you, Ray, that I was watching the Avs that night, and you text me and you're like, we're never going to be healthy. What exactly was he running down the court and something happened? Where did he re-aggravate that injury in that game? Was there a moment, or?
I think it was kind of all game. You kind of tell a little bit, but I didn't see exactly. I just started getting reports of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
and he did leave that game.
He did right before. It was actually no, I do remember. It was right before halftime. Like literally, I think like 10 seconds left, and he walked. And I think it was a offensive play they missed. Maybe like he went up for a rebound or something, got down, and then he left the court.
Which is not to be confused with when Giannis would not run back down the court, and then he proceeded to diagnose himself and give the prognosis, which I've never seen an athlete do. He's like, I'm out 4 to 6 weeks. And now he may never play again in Milwaukee. More on that later. So people were questioning David Adelman and the decision to play him because he didn't look right, and then he got hurt so quickly. And David Adelman said, well, we do a stress test, and it's the thing is, this is a soft tissue injury, and they are the most annoying, frustrating injuries that you could possibly have. Like compared to Bo Nix. Bo Nix broke his ankle. We patched it up. He'll be okay. But a groin or a hamstring or something like that, and then it's, well, you know, the track to get back, it's not a straight one. You can have setbacks. You can re-aggravate it. It can be bothering you the entire season, even though you're playing through it. Like, they're just very, very finicky. So I don't think that this warrants an investigation into the practices of the Nuggets training staff. I think this is the nature of soft tissue injuries. And the nature of soft tissue injuries for a guy who has had his bouts with injury. You know, broken people tend to stay broken. Like, and meaning if you're suffering some injuries, you tend to suffer injuries as you go along. Like, you're going to be hurt again. And it's nothing you could do. I mean, look at Aaron Gordon. I don't think another human being is in better shape than Aaron Gordon. But these things have happened. So now it's 4 to 6 weeks starting now. February is a short month. I feel like I'm doing the Jerry Seinfeld thing when they're staying with his parents, where he's like, well, today's almost over. And then we have the day that we fly and we're just going to be at the airport. It's really like 2 days. So with Aaron Gordon, 4 to 6 weeks, it's not really the same thing. It's kind of, it will feel longer because February is a short month. You're at the end of January. February is a short month. So we're pushing like well into March before Aaron Gordon is going to be even reevaluated. And Nikola Jokic is set to be reevaluated soon, and we don't know the results of that. So even 4 to 6 weeks with Aaron Gordon, and this is not me being playing a doctor on the radio. This is just observing, so take it as that. Go for the 6 with Aaron Gordon. Go for the 6, especially with his history, but also with the fact that the Nuggets brought him back and then he got hurt again. Erring on the with an abundance of caution is going to be. I think that's exactly what the Denver Nuggets are going to do. You're not going to see Aaron Gordon, I don't think, within 6 weeks. Now, these last 3 weeks have toughened you up as a Nuggets fan. You've been without Nikola Jokic for 3 weeks. This team can sustain any injury and any number of injuries and keep on plugging along. But I wonder at what point do you start to say, maybe it's not in the cards this year? I don't want to go to a dark place, but I'm going there. At what point, how many more injuries have to happen? And I'll tell you the one. It's Jamal Murray. Christian Brown being out, Aaron Gordon being out twice, Nikola Jokic being out, all of them being out at the same time. You've seen the results. They're not the best team in basketball without those guys, but they've been able to survive. And you have a little bit of confidence in them. If with all of these other injuries, if Jamal Murray gets hurt for a longer period of time, that's when I think Nuggets fans start asking, okay, is it just not in the cards for us and to win a title? Right, because the Nuggets would hardly be the first team that you thought was a championship contender and injuries had them fall short. In fact, wasn't there just some event the other day in which a key injury was a big reason why a team is not playing for their sports championship here next week? Any team ring a bell? I think that's what it is, what it will be. All this other stuff, even the news today of Aaron Gordon being out for 4 to 6 weeks. I think you have, if you're a Nuggets fan, you have the hope of Jokic coming back within the next week, and you see what the Denver Nuggets have been able to do, and they haven't had Aaron Gordon this whole time, right? Brown, Jokic, and Gordon have been hurt this whole time, basically. If Jamal Murray gets added to that long-term injury list, I would expect to hear from Nuggets fans saying, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen for us this year. So protect Jamal Murray at all costs. The collective psychology, the collective mental health of Nuggets Nation depends on Jamal Murray being consistently in the lineup with all these other guys out. And here's the other thing too. When is Cam Johnson supposed to be back? Anybody? He's the guy, and I even just did it then. Cam Johnson's been out this whole time. No one ever talks about Cam Johnson being hurt. Maybe people will remember that he's hurt tonight because the guy who's traded for is coming back. What was the last thing you heard on Cam Johnson, Ray?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I don't. But if he does come back soonish, let's say soonish, Aaron Gordon being out long term, there's your spot for Payton Watson. Payton Watson just slides over and plays Aaron Gordon's position. If Cam Johnson comes back, that juggling that David Adelman has to do when his team is healthy with the emergence of Payton Watson, I think that would be an easy spot to potentially put him in. But we'll see. I'm with Ray. I don't think I've heard much on Cam Johnson, and then Christian Brown with the ankle. So the Nuggets are even more banged up than you think because no one thinks of Cam Johnson. Poor guy. You want to talk about having difficulty figuring out the legacy of Michael Porter Jr. How will we look back on the Cam Johnson era in Denver if they don't re-sign him after next season? It has been like that for the Denver Nuggets this season. Far more bad injury news than good injury news. But this time they're going to take their time. Because don't forget, it's not just Aaron Gordon. Christian Brown, they did this. Christian Brown came back and then had to be out again because his ankle wasn't right. I think with him, it's more of a mental thing, and I don't think maybe he attacked the rehab the way he should have when he was working his way back the first time. But now the Nuggets have two players who were hurt, came back, and then were hurt for the same reason. So they're not going to invite any of those questions. They are going to take their time with Aaron Gordon and hope that by the All-Star break or when they come out of the All-Star break, that Aaron Gordon will be the only injury that they are dealing with. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts. Aaron Gordon out, will be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. No guarantee he'd even be back by then, but I mean, they're soft tissue injuries. Like, they're unpredictable. Nuggets and Nets tonight at 7. What a promo for that. Aaron Gordon's out for 4 to 6 weeks. Nuggets and Nets tonight on Extra Sports 1300. Coming up next, I told you what Bo Nix said about Sean Payton talking about his ankle injury. I didn't realize that Bo Nix was a little bit angrier than that. You'll hear from him next on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Welcome in hour 2 on this Thursday. Great to have you, and shouts to those of you watching this show, which you can do on a daily basis on whatever social media platform you prefer, just as long as you follow Extra Sports 1300 or 740 KVOR. And while you're there, like, subscribe, follow, and most importantly, drop a comment. And we'll get to those as we move through the show. Of course, there are more traditional means of communication. You could call or text your thoughts on this Thursday into 719-247-1313. I mentioned yesterday the little misunderstanding between Sean Payton and Bo Nix when it comes to Bo Nix's ankle. Now, here's what Sean Payton said about Bo Nix at his end of season press conference and that ankle injury.
They always find a little bit more when they go in, and it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. So it wasn't because when you look at the play and you're trying to evaluate it, he said, the doctor, operating surgeon said that this was going to happen sooner than later.
Now, he also threw out the word predisposed. I believe he said it when he announced Bo Nix's injury after the win against the Buffalo Bills. And I believe he said it the other day as well, the word predisposed, which means that something when it comes to injuries, I mean, predisposed can apply to a lot of areas of your life. But when you're talking about injury or illness, it is that something within you genetically or the way you are built is going to lead to this. Like people who are overweight are predisposed to diabetes. Like that is what Sean Payton implied, or we thought he was implying, when he used that word, which I reacted by saying, well, the next time Bo Nix suffers an ankle injury, we're going to have a conversation about whether this guy is worth investing in long term. If he is predisposed to ankle injuries and ankle fractures, not just injuries, not, ow, I rolled my ankle, breaking bones. I mean, that's a serious thing if Bo Nix is predisposed to having ankle injuries. And according to Luca Evans of the Gazette, that is part of the reason why Bo Nix spoke. In part because he just wanted to kind of update everybody and go, hey, I'm going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Which, by the way, how many different potential timelines are there for injuries? Because I just got done talking about Aaron Gordon. He's going to be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. Bo Nix is going to be back in 4 to 6 weeks, even though there's no football game to be played at that time. Like, is 4 to 6 weeks like the gold standard of injury timelines? And you just kind of deviate 1 or 2 standard deviations from that? Anyway, I digress. But it was also so he could kind of put Sean Payton in his place, or at least clear up some of the confusion around what Sean Payton said. Bo Nix, you are predisposed to having ankle injuries. Bo Nix doesn't sound pleased about what his coach said. Take a listen.
Nothing predisposed, nothing that was there originally. I might have gotten confused. Didn't have any predisposed issues. Man, my ankles were feeling really good. I don't think he really should share how many surgeries I've had in the past, to be honest with you, but because I don't, he doesn't really even know that.
Dang. I mean, it's one thing to clear it up, and it's possible that Sean Payton just misspoke, but that's a pretty big misstep in your syntax when you're saying that Bo Nix is predisposed as opposed to, and this is what sources have put out again through Luka Evans. What a heater Luka is on. By the way, if you don't read Luka's work, you should in the Gazette. And he's also the guy that everyone thinks Sean Payton is picking on in his press conferences, as an aside. But sources are telling Luka that it's not that he's predisposed, it's that there was something else in there that made it. How was it put? Because I don't want to step into the same spot Sean Payton did and have Bo Nix get mad at me on a conference call. Pre-existing stress to the bone, which could just mean Bo Nix was hurting his ankle and he finally injured it. Like, that could all be the pre-existing stress on the bone could be from this season. This could be an isolated injury. It was something that maybe you don't tweak and a bone in your ankle, but it could be something like my dad always used to say, you playing hurt. If you're hurt or you're injured, if you're hurt, you can play. If you're injured, you can't. Bo Nix might have been hurt for a portion of this season. And then after with the 2 plays left in the Buffalo game, got injured. But it could all be contained within this 1 year. Because the worry that you would have if you're a Broncos fan is that we're talking about previous surgeries on ankles, and we're talking about predisposed, and it now suddenly it's not just this year or just the Buffalo game as an isolated incident. This is part of Bo Nix as a football player. And that's where the questions that I raised yesterday come into play. How big of a worry is this if this guy keeps needing to get surgery on his ankle? And that's part of the reason why I think Bo Nix was so upset with Sean Payton. To say nothing of the fact, like, this is the absurd part of it all. During the season, you could not waterboard Sean Payton and get the injury report from him. Like, he felt like that was hanging on to the nuclear codes. Like, he wasn't going to give that information up for anything. And now he's bebopping, scatting, and talking about Bo Nix's ankle surgery when he was 18 years old. Like, how is a guy that thinks that that injuries are the most sacred of all information and would not dare bring it up, now freely talking about it in regards to his franchise's most important player and the highest profile player on his roster at the very least? And so that's the most absurd thing here, is that Sean Payton is suddenly willingly throwing out people's previous injuries, which, again, I think is a HIPAA violation, but I'm not a lawyer. But I'll tell you the reason why. There's no competitive advantage right now with hiding Bo Nix's injuries. Right? There's not a game on Sunday. That's why he withholds it. He's not protecting the rights of his players or saying it's none of our business. It's he doesn't want the other team to know any injury stuff, because football head coaches are the most paranoid people on planet Earth. Like, for someone to ask how J.K. Dobbins is doing and Sean Payton saying he's doing well is like going to tip the scales of Sunday's game. A different breed, those football coaches. But that's the most bizarre part of all this, is that he's willing to put out all this information and then it's not correct, according to Bo Nix. So for him to take time, because everything he said leading up to that is like, okay, it's not that could have been, again, wrong word used by Sean Payton. Bo Nix just trying to clarify, like, nothing to see here, all's good. But then he takes a moment in his answer to say, I don't think he should be sharing that stuff anyway, in addition to the fact that he's not correct. So here's where we play one of my favorite games. Big deal, little deal, or no deal. That Bo Nix said what he said regarding Sean Payton's comments regarding his ankle. It's not no deal. It's not nothing. Bo Nix was clearly perturbed by this. And the information that Sean Payton shared, let's take for a moment that Sean Payton was telling the truth and Bo Nix is lying. That he is predisposed to ankle injuries. That's a huge deal. If what Sean Payton said was not the wrong word usage and it was factually correct, then it's how concerned do you need to be that every other year Bo Nix is going to break his ankle? I'm going to settle on little deal. That could turn into a big deal. Okay, if you are a longtime Broncos fan, you know what things were like with Dan Reeves and John Elway and how that could negatively impact a football team. Now, they weren't bickering over injury history, but my point is you've seen in Denver how the quarterback and the coach not seeing eye to eye, maybe even, dare I say, not getting along, being a little bit upset at one another, can cause some issues. That relationship has to be the best relationship on your football team. In every facet, not just, and it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to, be best friends. But like getting mad at each other, that's not good. You need to have those two people in your organization in lockstep. And you're going to have a flare up every now and again. And maybe that's what this is. But then there's remember when Bo Nix kind of gave it right back to Sean Payton as well as he was giving it out. And at the time, it's like, well, good on Bo Nix. Like, that shows they're on equal footing. Well, how many more of those until you're like, oh, maybe it's not mutual, maybe there's some real problems there. Maybe that's not just heat of the battle. Maybe it's a clashing of the personalities of Bo Nix and Sean Payton. And this is what Sean Payton did, is a betrayal of trust, because he told us what Bo Nix told him in the training room. In a semi-private moment, Bo Nix told Sean Payton, like, oh yeah, I had an ankle surgery in high school, I had one in college. And then Sean Payton went to a microphone and blurted that out. That's a betrayal of trust. Now, is it something that Bo Nix and Sean Payton can move on from? Yeah, because the best thing for the two of them, they're going their separate ways. They're going to spend some time apart. But it's not nothing that Bo Nix felt the need in some part to set the record straight and to put his coach in his place for betraying that trust. And it, in some ways, caps off a very trying week for the Denver Broncos. Right? And that could be part of it too. Emotions are frayed. Everyone's upset. Bo Nix is doubly upset because not only is the Broncos season over, but his was over before the AFC Championship. That could be a part of this. But it's just, you keep the tally. Right? Like, I just think that that's worth doing moving forward. Okay, we had the little dust up on the sideline. We've had a couple of other times where Bo Nix and Sean Payton seem to be a little animated towards one another. And now we have this little couple day exchange. Just file it away. That's all I'm saying. And just know that discord between the head coach and the quarterback is the last thing that a football team needs. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the situation. Coming up next, so stick with football. We know Belichick is not getting into the Hall of Fame this year. Someone that was maybe the biggest thorn in his side isn't either. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Are Bo Nix and Sean Payton, Dan Reeves, and John Elway 2.0? That's what the streets are asking. No, but it's a very look. It's the worst time for Sean Payton to suddenly be very forthcoming with injury information. That's at the very least, given how upset everyone already is in Broncos country, but don't want to mess around with that relationship. It's got to be on point, or else nothing much else on your team is going to work. 719-24-7-1313. Ray Dominguez, producer extraordinaire. What we got on the text line?
From Brett. Maybe Joe Lombardi and Bo Nix were drawing up plays in the dirt and not telling Payton, hey, it worked for Mike Shanahan.
Mike Shanahan, and you can in another great text from Brett. If you're just finding the program for the first time, maybe you're a KVOR listener. Brett's a regular contributor and always entertaining on the text line. I believe that got Mike Shanahan fired, which is the comparison to Joe Lombardi. And Joe Lombardi just got fired. Those are the best jokes when you can go back. However, how long ago did Dan Reeves and 40 years? A joke that could go from something that happened 40 years ago and relate it to today. Well done, Brett. Yeah, that got Mike Shanahan fired, which further exacerbated the issues between Dan Reeves and John Elway. And I think even if you are younger, you still are aware that eventually Mike Shanahan came back and things went well for the Denver Broncos. So what I'm saying is 2028, Joe Lombardi as the head coach of the Denver Broncos helps Bo Nix win his long-awaited first Super Bowl. Speaking of football, so the Belichick thing, getting snubbed, people didn't like it. But the best thing, and I almost wonder if this was coordinated, like the coincidence of Bill Belichick, it being leaked that he's not getting into the Hall of Fame. And then it just so happens that Eli Manning is also not getting into the Hall of Fame. That feels like quite the coincidence, doesn't it? Like the two of them obviously linked in football history. I mean, you knew another leak was going to come out because the leaks we don't normally hear these things in advance. Because the Pro Football Hall of Fame says, don't be talking about it. So we don't normally get the leaks. So you knew that with Belichick, there would be another. And of everyone in this class, I kind of feel like Eli Manning in many ways is a fitting one. But it has also been found out by The Athletic that Eli Manning is not getting into the Hall of Fame. Now, I don't know what this does for you, but for me, who was quite perturbed about the Belichick thing, this actually makes me feel better. It restores my faith in the voters for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Because, yeah, they got one wrong in a major way with Bill Belichick. That was dumb. And their reasons are even dumber for not voting him in first time around. But the fact that they come along and they don't put Eli in either, they totally redeem themselves. Well, not totally, because this is easy. This is easy. Eli Manning is not a Hall of Fame quarterback. I concede that he will get in one day, just like those 11 people who voted against Belichick can rage against the night all they want. Bill Belichick's going to get in the Hall of Fame. Eli Manning will get in. I know he will. And I'm going to say on that day, he doesn't deserve to be in. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback. If there's one position where we got to set the bar really high, think about how pass happy this league has become. There's got to be one position where we go, you know what? This is the best of the best. We're not watering down the product here. And that one position to me is quarterback. Eli Manning, and I know there's Super Bowls. I know that. 2 games of Eli Manning's entire career, he was a Hall of Fame player. 2 games. That's not enough at the sport's most important position and any sport's most important position. That's the highest profile, most important job in all of sport. If our standards can't be super high there, then what are we doing here? And I'm a bigger Hall guy, but there are exceptions to every rule. And the quarterback position is one of those. Phillip Rivers, not a Hall of Famer. Russell Wilson, absolutely not a Hall of Famer. We got to draw the line somewhere. We can have high standards, and Eli Manning is that guy right now for me. So he's not going to get in this time around. But also, too, if you don't agree with me that Eli's not a Hall of Famer, if you think he is, let me ask if you would have voted him in with this class. So you can vote for up to 5. Okay? And I won't read all the names. I'll give you my 5, and you tell me which one of those Eli Manning should replace. Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, and Jason Witten. Which one of those 5 guys is Eli Manning more deserving than? And don't you dare say Drew Brees. And that probably hurt Eli because they were filling out their ballot and they're like, oh, Drew Brees, obviously. Eli Manning, oh, I'm going to put Eli in next to Drew Brees. Next to Drew Brees, Eli Manning looks less deserving. Maybe a year where there isn't one of the 10 best quarterbacks of all time. Maybe that would help Eli a little bit here. But you could go to, I mean, Jari Evans. I know that's not a household name. Saints fans, where are you at? Corey Roldan, are you listening? Tell me, back me up on Jari Evans. Reggie Wayne, Terrell Suggs, Marshall Yanda. I mean, these are guys, especially the offensive linemen, are some of the best of this era. Let alone just being, on their own deserving because of their merits. They have been the standard at those positions. And I'm not saying all of those guys deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying Eli Manning, if I'm doing ranked choice voting here, Eli Manning is not even 6. So that I think for this year, I don't know how you can argue that Eli Manning should be in. The bigger picture of should he be in ever, I understand I'm in the minority on that one. I get it. People want Eli in the Hall of Fame. He played in a big market. He's got a last name of football royalty. And he was the quarterback of a team that beat the dynastic Colts in the Super Bowl twice. Like, I get it. I mean, Eli's not the worst quarterback in the history of football. I understand that. But I just don't think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. But he's certainly not more deserving. And therein lies why the voters against Bill Belichick got it so wrong and why these voters are getting it right with Eli. outside of their actual candidacy. Because the thought process with the voting, I think with Eli, because I think they're going to put him in eventually. But what they did, I believe, was look at the 15 semifinalists and go, let's put in the 5 best. Eli's been waiting a little bit. They didn't care. They said, we're going to take the 5 best, and Eli Manning's not one of the 5 best. Whereas some of the people, I don't know how many of the 11 it is, went, well, Bill Belichick will have his time. The Kansas City Star writer yesterday, I didn't put in Belichick because these other guys have been waiting longer. Who cares? Because all we're going to do, we don't factor that in. We say, here's the guys that got in. Here are the guys that didn't. Does this make sense? Oh, this guy's been waiting longer. He's been waiting his turn. I'm sorry. You got to put the best, most deserving Hall of Fame candidates in when they are right there in front of you. The reason why guys go from one year to the next is because most of the time the voters do this. That's why they broke rank with Bill Belichick. Another issue. You look at the ballot each year. You don't try to chase, somebody who just got left off a year or two ago. You got to go with the best right now. And Eli Manning is not one of the 5 most deserving Hall of Fame candidates in this class. But Bill Belichick is the most deserving of all the contributors or whatever category they're calling it. He's the most deserving. The most deserving. Not one of. Not if you have multiple cracks at it, which you do. You have 3. He's the most deserving. So it does restore a little bit of my faith in the process that they're not messing up everything. But I got to say, I'm still more upset about the Belichick thing than I am happy that Eli Manning. And that's honestly a better place to be, right? It's better that I'm getting more upset about someone not getting in than upset about someone that is going to get in. So no Belichick, no Eli. Even Steven, all square now. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Broncos, before they can venture out into the world and bring in reinforcements from the outside, they got to decide what to do with the guys on their roster. Who you signing, who you letting go, and who you dangling for a potential trade. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Broncos starting their offseason decision-making process by firing offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi and both Davis Webb and Jim Leonard, their defensive passing game coordinator, and Vance Joseph, although I think that's one that it certainly looks like it's trending in the direction of Vance Joseph staying, maybe not. Jonathan Cooper leaking that earlier this week. But the buzz around Vance Joseph has certainly quieted down. Davis Webb and Jim Leonard, not so much. And again, I said, look, if this was before Lombardi got fired, but if Jim Leonard's the only coach that, and I'll put it this way, since Sean Payton chose to fire a dutiful lieutenant of 15 years, if Jim Leonard is the only coach that the Broncos lose involuntarily, then I think it'll be a win in that department. If they can keep Davis Webb and they can keep Vance Joseph, I think that'll be good. But there are multiple teams still interested in Davis Webb's services, and a couple with Jim Leonard to make him their defensive coordinator. But after the whole coaching shuffle, you have the players, and the Broncos have a fair amount of free agents that they have to make decisions on. And even though they have, how did Sean Payne put it?
If I said, I'm going to give you $50,000 to decorate your home or $200,000, the home's going to look nicer, I think, if you're a decent shopper, if you have more money. I think the same takes place with our sport.
As opposed to the sport of interior decorating, apparently. But even though the Broncos are in a little bit of a better financial spot, they can't sign all of these guys. And many of these guys are going to be looking for prominent roles. I will just give you a case in point. John Franklin Myers has had a tremendous season. Broncos already made a decision on him. He's gone. They extended Malcolm Roach. Is John Franklin Myers going to – clearly that is a priority. That Malcolm Roach is the priority for them. Is John Franklin Myers, off of a career year, going to want to come back and share time with Malcolm Roach? So that one I'm not going to include because I think John Franklin Myers is as good as gone. A little surprising. I thought that John Franklin Myers deserved to be re-upped by the Denver Broncos. But I know they do like Malcolm Roach. Malcolm Roach did play for the Saints. So he won out in the end. But you can't keep all these guys. Because other teams are going to come calling with more money and better roles. So part of my calculation, and it will be part of the Broncos calculation, is if you prioritize something, are you willing to let other teams kind of wine and dine your other free agents? So when I bring up who the guy I'm signing, it's not that this is the best of the Broncos free agents. This is something that I want to take care of. And I'll take my chances with outside interest in these other guys. So in terms of signing a guy, letting a guy go, and trading somebody, the guy I would sign is Justin Stranad. Okay, again, he's not the best player that is set to become a free agent, but you have two guys at that position in Alex Singleton and Justin Stranad that you like, both of them. Both of them think that they're starters, regular players now with the way that Justin Stranad came in for the Denver Broncos this year. You only choose one of them. Stranad's younger. So I would kind of like with the Malcolm Roach, John Franklin Myers. If you just looked at it on its face in terms of production, Alex Singleton was more productive than Justin Stranad. But John Franklin Myers was more productive than Malcolm Roach. Sometimes you can pay a guy a little bit less, betting on a little bit of his upside. And the fact that he'll have a regular role will make him more worth it. With Alex Singleton, he's been a long-time starter, so he's going to want that money. You could probably save a few bucks with Justin Strnad. Again, it's a salary cap league. The Denver Broncos don't have unlimited monies. I go Justin Strnad, and I just cross it off. I'm good there. See if year 2 with Dre Greenlaw is better. And I get it. It's going to be a little bit difficult because of the health issues that Alex Singleton went through. And he is an absolute warrior for going through it. And he is an incredibly likable guy, great in the community. But if we're just talking about football and trying to not be frugal, but be smart with the money, I think you have a guy who's a little bit younger. You can project him into a starting role and say he might end up being more worth the contract in the future than if we just paid Alex Singleton based on what he did before. Right? Justin Strnad is a little bit of a bet on the future. Alex Singleton, you're paying him for what he's already done. And those kind of contracts can become a bit problematic. Now, the guy I'm letting walk because I think that there's something better out there. It's J.K. Dobbins. And this is not about J.K. Dobbins not being a productive back this year. He was a productive back this year. But the Denver Broncos were middle of the road in rushing this year. Part of that is a byproduct of Sean Payton's system, I grant you. But for as much as we talked about the running game, for them to be 15-16 in the NFL in rushing, that it seems like they could be a little bit higher. And the biggest risk you had with J.K. Dobbins was his injuries. Sure enough, once he got hurt, you never saw him again. So this is not, J.K. Dobbins was bad and goodbye. And certainly if J.K. Dobbins ended up back with the Denver Broncos, it would not be a bad thing at all. But I'll equate it to his last employer. Look at what his last employer did. The Chargers. They said, you know what? We like you, but go ahead and go out and see what other people have. And we, bring us back the contract and we'll see if we want to match it because we like you. And then what do? They drafted Omarion Hampton and they're like, yeah, I don't know that we really need you anymore. I could see the Broncos, or I think that the Broncos should treat J.K. Dobbins the same way. Now, Sean Payton spoke so highly of him, I doubt that the team sees eye to eye with me. But I think that's a position when you talk about Kenneth Walker, who's about to play in a Super Bowl. You have Breece Hall, who has a ton of talent. And you have Travis Etienne. I'm not saying all three of them are going to be available, but I bet one of them is. And all three would be an upgrade. This is about my point yesterday. Good enough is not good enough. If you can upgrade any position on your football team, you do it. Now you follow a hierarchy of what are the most important positions. Right? You got to, for instance, you have a cost-controlled punter in Jeremy Crawshaw. If there's a better punter out there, you can make the decision like, look, we can upgrade, but it's not the most important position. Running back is a very important position. In my mind, it's a priority, or at least improving the Broncos' run game is a priority. And it seems like there are at least three guys out there, and who knows what cut down day will bring along, or cut day, or right before free agency. But I already see 3 guys that I think would be upgrades over J.K. Dobbins in the run game. Or heck, look at it the other way. Which one of those guys would you want to pair with J.K. Dobbins? Let's get real greedy if you're a Broncos fan. Why not? All I'm saying is there are clear upgrades at running back. Sean Payton said that he wanted to improve on the running game. Makes a lot of sense. I'm not opposed to J.K. Dobbins ending up back on the Denver Broncos, but I think that's the guy that you say, you know what? Go ahead and go out. See what you can get. And then come back to us. And meanwhile, George Payton can try to make a move for a better running back. And then the guy that I dangle in trade talks, and I look at this more not with the value that the Denver Broncos can get back, so much as there's somebody on the roster that has got to have his time. I think you dangle Riley Moss in trade talks. Okay, you know me. I haven't been one of those people that are defending Riley Moss to the death like so many Broncos fans are. So, and that's where I wonder what you could actually get back. But this is not about Riley Moss. This is about Jahdae Barron. Okay, George Payton said it. Great for us, kind of bad for Jahdae Barron that he was pushed down the pecking order because they had so many players in the secondary. You drafted him with the first-round pick. Not every first-round pick has to hit and be a huge impact in year one. You would love it to be, but clearly the Denver Broncos got by for the most part this season without Jahdae Barron making a big impact. Now you got to see that ROI. Now you got to see what Jahdae Barron has. You got to stress test him a little bit because I thought that the plan all along was that Jahdae Barron would play in the slot. Credit to Jaquan McMillan. Probably just flat out beat him out for that position. But the long-term play was going to be him opposite Pat Surtain. And I think that needs to, you only have a handful of years with these guys before you have to pay them big money. And if you get back, George Payton in the draft, been overall pretty dang good. Wouldn't mind giving him another bite at the apple come April if somebody is willing to take on Riley Moss. So I signed Stranad. I let J.K. Dobbins walk. And I trade Riley Moss. Take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show. We'll hit the Avs, Broncos, and Nuggets all in one foul swoop. You're listening to Drive Time Sports on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Be back in just a few. Welcome in. Hour 3 on this Thursday. Great to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR or Extra Sports 1300. And a reminder that both of those stations have apps where you can listen to this show or any one of your favorite shows on either station with crystal clear audio wherever you might go. It is free to download. They are free to download. They are free to use. And they are sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. I just remembered what today is. And today is my least favorite day. It is the day where the Colorado Avalanche put on the uniform of a team that they are definitely not anymore for the sake of nostalgia and moving merchandise. The Colorado Avalanche are wearing their Nordique uniforms to play the Montreal Canadiens, and Altitude has a full-blown throwback-looking broadcast, all that. If you're new to the program, I think if you move cities as a sports team, whatever history you may have had in that previous city, it is not yours anymore. You leave it, and you certainly don't exploit it for profit. This is the Colorado Avalanche. They're not the Quebec Nordiques. And by the way, most people who root for the Avalanche in Colorado do not care about when they were the Nordiques because they only cared when they showed up in Colorado. But they're wearing them. I'll try to push on and still keep an eye on the game for you. We have Nuggets and Nets tonight. More on that in a moment on Extra Sports 1300. Ross Colton back for the Avs tonight. But got to talk about what the Avs did last night, and that is the first of 3 stories that are driving the show. All right, perhaps Avs fans want to move on quickly to tonight's game based on the way last night went, but that's not the way this works. Here's story number 1.
Giroux trying to make a play with it. Nelson was there. Now it's Machushkin. And he'll feed it around far side. McKinnon at the line. Kept it in. Sanderson off the boards and out. Kachuk empty net. Scores! Brady Kachuk puts it into the empty cage. 4-2 Ottawa.
Sportsnet Canada on the call. The Senators beat the Avalanche last night by a final of 5-2. Looked like a lopsided loss in terms of the scoreboard. Really wasn't, because 2 of the goals were empty netters, but the way the Avs played, it was a lopsided game. So in many ways, they deserved for it to be a 3-goal loss because they had nothing going. Jared Bednar called them flat and repeated the word over and over again in his post-game media scrum. He was not pleased with the energy and effort level of his team last night. They only had 8 shots on goal through 2 periods. And so that's why, even though 2 of the goals were empty netters, I think 5-2 ended up feeling like a fair result. And what that is now 3 of the worst Avalanche performances that we have seen all year happening in the last 2 weeks. The 7-2 loss a couple weeks ago to Nashville. The other day, they lose 7-2 to Philly, and the loss last night. At times, unrecognizable are the Colorado Avalanche. Not the team that lost just twice in regulation in its first 40 games. But I am here to diagnose the reason, to find the why. And I have 3 causes of this. 1 is that the Olympic break is coming up. And the Avs have 8 players on their roster that are getting ready to represent their country, and it does matter greatly to those players. And there's a lot of distractions going on, so I could see if the Avs maybe at times are peeking a little bit ahead at what's to come. Not justifying it, but it's again, we talk about human nature, human psychology. I could see that being a factor. The fact that a team playing as well as the Avs were, losing twice in regulation in the first 40 games, is due for some sort of a regression. They could not sustain that pace for 82 games. That's just it. That they would obliterate every team record there possibly is if they were able to do that. There are peaks, there are valleys. The Avs have been, pardon the pun, because of the whole mountains thing, they have been at their peak for a very long time. They were due to hit a valley. And then the third reason, and I think this is the most important one, they're injured. And the injuries do lead to the regression, right? You're not going to lose only twice in regulation in 40 games and keep everybody healthy for 82 games. Just not going to happen. The 2 injuries in particular that I think are really showing themselves lately. Devon Taves, because the goal prevention aspect of the Colorado Avalanche has not been great lately, despite decent goaltending. And I thought last night, Mackenzie Blackwood was really good. But there's more to preventing goals. There's more to team defense than just the goalie. And you don't have arguably the best defensive defenseman, not even arguably, he is the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. You're going to give up more goals. And the Avs have. But as it pertains to last night in particular, and Jared Bednar's diagnosis of flat, that to me is where they're missing Gabriel Landeskog thing. Because this team attacked the regular season in such a business-like manner. Because Gabriel Landeskog was on the ice with them, on the bench with them, and they looked over and they're like, this guy went through Hades and back to get back to play here, and I'm going to slack off tonight? No way. His absence is why you're getting more flat performances, why you're getting games that the Avs will kind of let go of the rope a little bit. And some credit is deserved for the Avs because they did fight back to make it a 1-goal game. But the start, their form of late, where they are 2-4 in their last 6 games, all coincide with Gabriel Landeskog being out. I don't think that's a coincidence. Should have Landeskog back at least after the Olympic break, if not maybe a cameo before. Devon Taves, everybody else, they'll get healthier. But right now they're going through it a little bit as they are just underway in Montreal. Scott Wedgwood in net. Congrats to Scott and his wife having a baby girl the other day. But he is back in net. And Avs and Canadiens just underway. Keep you updated on that as we move along. Here is story number 2.
Nothing predisposed, nothing that was there originally. I might have gotten confused. Didn't have any predisposed issues. Man, my ankles were feeling really good. I don't think he really should share how many surgeries I've had in the past, to be honest with you, but because I don't, he doesn't really even know that.
That is Broncos quarterback Bo Nix, of course, on a conference call with the media that he called in part, according to reporting by the Gazette, to clear it up and kind of go at the claims that Sean Payton made, that he was predisposed to this ankle injury. Wasn't that he was predisposed, according to the team, that or a source close to the team, also reported by the Gazette. It was just that there was some pre-existing stress on that bone, which could just mean he put stress on that bone, got hurt earlier on in the season, and then this was the inevitable next thing that would happen if he kept playing. That you live with. That's football. Predisposed means Bo Nix has been battling this his whole life and is going to continue to battle this throughout his career, and that clearly has irked Bo Nix enough to want to clear the air a little bit. Because what Sean Payton did as Montreal beat Scott Wedgwood to go up 1-0 less than a minute into the game, tonight's not looking any better than last night. But what Sean Payton did was betray the trust of his quarterback. Sean Payton even said it, that it was while he was in the room. It was a private moment that he was sharing. Oh, I had an ankle surgery during college. I had one during high school. And then Sean Payton went and blurted it out to the whole world. And it's the worst possible time to do it because everyone's nerves are frayed right now coming off of the AFC Championship loss. Now is not the time to be fast and loose with players' injury information. And that could be all this is. A bad end to a very bad week for the Denver Broncos. But this is not the first time that Bo Nix has seemed, shall I say, irked with his head coach. And you start to keep a running total. And at some point you wonder if each one can't be explained away on its own, and it starts to be symptomatic of a fraying of the relationship, the most important relationship on a football team between the head coach and, for now, play caller and its quarterback. Bo Nix is not happy about this. Let's not diminish Bo Nix's feelings right now because he knows the implications. Oh, he's injury prone. He's not worth investing in long term. Bo Nix doesn't want to hear that. He doesn't believe that. So now we're up to 2 or 3 of these in just a couple of years where Bo Nix seems to be a little bit irked about his head coach, some of the antics from Sean Payton. Not nothing. Not Dan Reeves, John Elway 2.0 yet, but a situation, as we say in news, to monitor. Now here's story number 3.
Over to Murray. Kicks it off. Porter 3. Yes! Nothing but net, and that will be the basketball game. Nuggets lead it by 30 points with 7 minutes left to go in Minnesota in game number 3.
One of the last shining moments of Michael Porter's time with the Denver Nuggets, as called by Jason Kosmicki on the Altitude Radio Network. Tonight, Michael Porter comes back to Ball Arena for the first time as a member of the Brooklyn Nets. And it's not often that you have an opportunity to welcome back someone who is part of a championship team. And that's why tonight is significant. But it also rekindles some of the discussion around Michael Porter Jr. And the legacy question comes up. How will Michael Porter be remembered? I think he will be remembered as most often a scapegoat for anything that went wrong with the Denver Nuggets. Right? He was put into this box, had this very defined small role within the Denver Nuggets, but somehow was never given credit for wins, but always blamed for losses. That's what it was. And even when you try to think of the best Michael Porter moment, you have a very hard time. Like Michael Porter toughed it out. He was playing with one arm against OKC in Game 7. Nobody cared because Aaron Gordon was fighting through injury. He hit the game-tying shot in game 1 against the Lakers last year. Nobody cares because Jamal Murray on the next possession hit a buzzer beater to win the game. That is the perfect encapsulation of Michael Porter's time. Everything good that he did was actually overshadowed. His role with this team was not that of a true role player or a bit player. There's something more. But you can't really think of a time where Michael Porter played the hero. But he so often was the GOAT in some of these Nuggets losses. And I think the time apart, if you will, has, especially with Cam Johnson struggling in that role as much as he did before he got hurt, some appreciation for, okay, maybe Michael Porter wasn't the cause of all the Nuggets' ills over those years. And maybe he did help the Denver Nuggets win a title. And I would expect tonight him to be honored with a video and a standing ovation from the Denver Nuggets fans that are there. But that brings up our question of the day. A little bit lighter topic than the legacy question. Who's happier, the Denver Nuggets or Michael Porter after that trade? Michael Porter has gone on to spread his wings. He has no limitations. Doesn't have Michael Malone coaching him. And he's put up big numbers. He's a borderline all-star this year for the Brooklyn Nets. Or the Denver Nuggets, who by moving him have now created more depth than they have maybe ever had. I think they're both very happy the trade went down. Who do you think is happier? 719-24-7, 13-13. Avs answer back. Tied up at 1. I believe it was Brock Nelson who scored the goal. What a season he's having. And we are tied up at 1 between the Canadiens and Avalanche. Don't let your eyes deceive you if you're watching the game and see QUE in the column. They are COL. They are the Avs. 719-24-7, 13-13. More to come here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. taking your thoughts, a variety of ways to get in touch with the show. You can either call or text in the show at 719-247-1313. Ray will fire up the text line and see what's there. Or you can reach out on social media as at S. Golikson tweeted out, goalie, can I just call you goalie? I'm going to call you goalie because that's your name on Twitter. Saying, I have to disagree with your Avs take. Why shouldn't they honor their history in Quebec? The franchise records date back to Quebec. By your logic, I should not honor my history as a grandson of an Irish immigrant. And he says, friendly banter, appreciate your show. Well, okay, you took it to a very different place, but I like it. Let's go with this. So, and I'll respond to you on Twitter so we could continue the conversation. Two things. One, your family left. Did your grandparents leave Ireland because they hated it there? And they wanted to go to a much better place? Because that's what the Nordiques organization did. So I think there's a little bit of, and also, two, are you selling merchandise for your Irish heritage like the Avs are selling Nordique stuff? They're using it for profit in large part. Okay, so if you're trying to profit off of it, and that is one of your main goals, then I think that you wouldn't want to do that. I get it. They did play in Quebec. In fact, some of it, you talk about Joe Sakic, and some of the highlights of Joe Sakic might be in a Nordiques uniform. I'm just saying, think about how Quebec feels whenever they are reminded, oh yeah, that team that has won 3 Stanley Cups and is one of the standard bearers in the league. We used to have them and we lost them. They abandoned us. So I guess I would also answer your tweet by saying, how does Ireland feel about your family? And in my family, my family's from Ireland and Scotland as well. I think it's an extreme thing you're bringing up, but I actually love it because that's where I want to go. I want the extremes. I want the out there comparisons. This is a business, and they are using this to make money. And also, I don't think Quebec loves. I would love to hear from someone from Quebec, because part of what I am doing here is trying to take up the mantle for my friends in Quebec. So if I'm fighting a fight they don't want fought, please let me know. But I'm just trying to put myself in the position of a Nordiques fan, or a Vancouver Grizzlies fan, or a Sonics fan, and to see the history of my franchise, the franchise I was a fan of, to be continued to be used and used for profit by the organization that abandoned me in my city, I would be a little bit sore about it. And I get it. It's not just for profit. There is a bit of legitimate wanting to honor, and Altitude does a great job of looking back on the time in Quebec. I'm just saying, let's take in all the reasons why they do this. It's like that old saying, the answer is money. What's the question? Same thing with the Broncos, except it's okay because they're wearing Denver Broncos uniforms. Why they wear the throwbacks? So they can sell you the throwbacks. Love the tweet, by the way. I'm going to love it. Let me hit the thing. Boom. It's a good tweet. But that's just one. If you're just tuning in, 2 things about me. Yes, I don't usually have the most sunny outlook on the sports world. But also, I do not like when teams leave cities and then bring back, the throwbacks. I don't like it. I think the history, the trademarks, all that stuff should be left there. And I hope one day Quebec gets its own team. I know they have Montreal, but I'm saying like Quebec City. And I hope that they wrestle all that stuff away from the Avs and we can actually watch the Nordiques play in Quebec. Just who I am. It's my heritage. No, it's not my heritage, but it's just a strong sports opinion that I have. At Gingerly Tweets, by the way, on X, if you want to interact there. Text line, Ray, anything?
I got one from Tyler.
Okay, first of all, we need to figure out a way that you don't have to like rise out of your seat to be able to deliver the text messages. Can we get something on this microphone so Ray can be comfortable when he reads the text line? Go ahead.
Yeah. One from Tyler. The Ravens don't wear the Browns jersey. The brown jersey.
What? Correct. So, but what we have to look at, the Browns exist now. So we have to be fair.
Right.
Did they ever, in the time it took for them to move to Baltimore for when the Tim Couch Browns came about? I don't believe they did. But I'm just framing the conversation in a fair way. The reason why the Avs can continue to wear the Nordiques stuff and the Ravens can't wear the Brown stuff is because the Browns are an actual team.
Like they couldn't wear Colts stuff either.
Correct.
Right.
So I think Tyler makes a phenomenal point and helps me make my point. I'm just saying let's frame it the right way, because the obvious answer why don't they wear it now is because the team exists by that name. So there's that. So you have more, or you can finally rest?
That was it. But that actually brings up good, because it's like Denver couldn't wear the Denver Rockets if they wanted to do a throwback, right? The Nuggets.
I don't know where that ended up. And what the funny thing is, and I guess it's also speaks to how good of a sports state that we live in. Does anybody want to wear? No, they did wear Rockets-inspired throwbacks.
Okay.
They've worn Rockets-inspired throwbacks. They haven't completely branded. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what, between what I say and what goalie says, maybe there's a middle ground. I think the Avs actually did this. Did they? I don't think it's the right way to go about it, but I think the intent was we'll take the Avs, but also with a nod to Nordiques. And didn't they do a Nordiques jersey with Avs colors?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't think that that's good either, because again, the logo is the more than the colors. Mm-hmm. Maybe it should be an Avs sweater with Nordiques colors.
Ooh,
and maybe that's a way to do a little homage, because it is a proud history in Quebec. But the thing about Colorado sports is I don't think we want to, like, whether it's the Colorado Rockies hockey team, has anybody ever? Nope, nobody's wanted to do that. The Devils, if you want to bring out the Rocky hockey gear, go right ahead. Although I think that the baseball team,
right,
that of note that is named that, probably protects that trademark and would keep the Devils even if they wanted to. But that was the most sorry hockey team ever. But where do you? So you are, just to paint the picture and to have my listeners get to know you. You are very much like me in that you root for Colorado teams except for one, or I should say, if I asked you your favorite teams in each sport, you would say Colorado teams except for one sport. Is that correct?
Yes, but I still root for.
You do. You pull for the Broncos.
But if it came down to a Broncos-Steelers AFC championship, I'm most likely rooting for the Steelers.
Right. Whereas, yeah.
But
So
every
for
other
me,
sport, yeah.
we're right. For me, I grew up rooting Avalanche when they came in, the Rockies, and the Nuggets, and then the one team that I did not root for growing up was the Denver Broncos. So, I mean, Steelers are perpetually wearing their throwbacks. So you wouldn't have personal experience with this either. We need to find a Vancouver Grizzlies fan or a Sonics fan. I'll tell you this, and I don't even have to know many people in Seattle. I will tell you that Sonics fans would be apoplectic if the OKC Thunder trotted out Sonics uniforms. In fact, Gary Payton won't even allow himself to be honored by the OKC Thunder.
Do you think they'll ever bring back
the Sonics?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's inevitable. I think we're going.
I think
it's going to be Vegas and Seattle.
Exactly. That's what.
And the Sonics are going to be back. But OKC is well within their rights to put out Sonic stuff, and I actually give them credit for that because they don't.
Right.
But I promise you, people in Seattle would be livid if Shea wore a Sonics jersey.
But yeah, no, I agree with that. Sorry, I was just thinking this because we said if a team exists, then you can't wear that.
Correct.
What about the Minnesota Lakers?
The Minneapolis Lakers?
Minneapolis Lakers, sorry.
Well, they're the LA Lakers.
I know, but
what
they did a throwback?
Well, no, yeah, the Lakers have.
Oh, okay.
The Lakers have worn like George Mikan style jerseys. They have.
Okay.
It's not their favorite. And when you're, an iconic brand like that, you don't really deviate. No reason to do many throwbacks. But they did the did they have the blue in Minneapolis, or was that when they moved over to the Lakers? I know, to more directly answer your question, I know they have worn Minneapolis Lakers throwbacks. You know the ones I'm talking about? They're the blue with like the Carolina blue trim. Are those Minneapolis, or were those when they moved to LA?
Let me see. Yeah, so like what I'm seeing is the blue, like North Carolina, but it's the yellow with MPLS.
Okay, so I'm right.
Yeah,
so that was Minneapolis. The Lakers have used that.
I have seen those, yes.
You're right.
You're right.
And look, Minnesota fans are okay now because they have the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying would apply if no NBA team ended up back in Minnesota. That Minneapolis sports fans would be well within their right to be angry that the Lakers use the Minneapolis Lakers whatever records.
It's kind of like when someone, like, I don't know, the Chargers try to claim Drew Brees as like a quarterback.
It is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
It is a little bit like that. And we do that. We did that with Peyton Manning a lot. Like, who's Peyton? No, but I'm just saying, like, we've had those kind of debates. John Lynch. That's the perfect one. John Lynch being inducted into the Broncos Ring of Fame is a joke. Not because John Lynch wasn't a good player with the Broncos or isn't worthy of being honored in a general sense. It's that he spent 5 minutes with the Denver Broncos.
Right.
And he is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So if you're the Broncos did it to help put him over the top to get him in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. That's why they did it. Right. But let's just say they did it because they wanted to claim somebody that they knew was going to go to Hall of Fame. So they could say, we have X number of Hall of Famers.
Well, it's like claiming
Tampa
Jerry
Bay
Rice.
Bucs fans would be well within their right to be upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
John Lynch is a Buccaneer, not a Bronco.
Yeah, because I've just seen on, social media Chargers saying push Drew Brees into the Hall of Fame.
Too.
And I'm like, I don't feel like you can necessarily claim him.
No, he's a Saint.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, you made that decision. The Chargers could have kept him.
They could have. Yeah.
They could have kept him. They didn't want to. Yeah. So that's just, it's who I am as a human being. 719-247-1313. Avs, it's gotten worse. Can I mention that the Avs are down by more? Or...
I don't know. Be positive about it.
Okay. There's plenty of hockey left to be played, and the Avalanche are down 3-1 to the Canadiens. Back after this. 3-1. Montreal up on the Avs with less than 2 minutes to go in period number 1. Nick Suzuki with 2 goals for Montreal. Brock Nelson, I was right with the lone Avs goal. And then Noah Dobson I'm going the other way. Dobson scored first, then Nelson. Now Nick Suzuki scoring a power play goal, and then the biggest weakness of this Avs team, Nick Suzuki scored shorthanded. So the Avs power play. Once again, that was one thing last night that we got a break from. We got a break from the conversation about the Avs power play because they didn't get one against the Ottawa Senators. Tonight they do, and Montreal scores a shorthanded goal. Look, allow me to be optimistic. This stretch that the Avs are on may be inevitable given all the forces at play here. How well they played to start the season, the Olympic break coming up, the injuries they have sustained. The Avs, and I said this earlier, the Avs are 9 points up on Minnesota for the top spot in the Central, and they have 3 games in hand. If any team could afford a 2-week rough stretch, it was the Avs. The one thing that I will continue to say should worry you perpetually if you're an Avalanche fan is the power play. Like, that is a real issue. That was an issue when they were winning. It's been an issue over the last 2 weeks. That's a problem. Avs not having Landeskog, looking forward to the Olympic break, just natural regression from an unbelievable start to the year. All that stuff can be remedied. And I expect it to be remedied. In fact, they got Ross Colton back. So already the Avs are healthier than they were 24 hours ago. Power play, though, that's going to continue to be an issue here. Speaking of injuries, David Adelman just met with the media in advance of their game against the Brooklyn Nets tonight. He described this, according to Vinny Benedetto of the Gazette, described Aaron Gordon's headspace as, quote, extremely frustrated. And I understand that. I mean, not only has this guy had numerous run-ins with injuries, but this is a soft tissue injury, and they are the most frustrating of all the injuries because you can't. It's not like go under the knife, get it done. I made the comparison to Bo Nix, right? Bo Nix got the bone fixed, and away we go. 4 to 6 weeks, he's back, ready to go, training camp and all the rest. With Aaron Gordon, it's frustrating because he thought he was ready to come back. The Nuggets thought he was ready to come back. They ran him through the stress test, all good there, and then he immediately gets hurt. Has to be extremely frustrating for Aaron Gordon to go through this stuff. And again, I'm going to say it, don't expect the 4, expect the 6 in terms of the chances of when Aaron Gordon comes back. Because now you're in a situation where this is twice. It's the same with Christian Brown. You may be wondering, why hasn't Christian Brown come back yet? Because the Nuggets are going to make 110% sure that he's ready to go and he's confident in that ankle. Because I don't think he was when he came back. Same thing with Aaron Gordon. Now, and that's not to say it's foolproof. He could tweak his hammy the minute he steps out on the court when he returns. But they're going to make, like, if Aaron Gordon came through the stress test and he was 90%, they're going to make sure he's 100. So don't expect to see Aaron Gordon for a while. No update on Nikola Jokic. The game tonight, and then they play tomorrow. Yes, they have a back-to-back, and then the big one on Sunday against OKC, which you can hear on Extra Sports 1300. NBC's publicizing it like Jokic is going to play. We'll find out. But the Nuggets with not Jokic, not Brown, not Aaron Gordon, take on Michael Porter and the Brooklyn Nets tonight. Now, this is a game unlike the other night where I was effusive in my praise until the frustrating end of that game against the Pistons. I was effusive of my praise of the Denver Nuggets for going up against the best team in the East and walking them down from a double-digit deficit to have a chance to win that game. Now, Jamal Murray misses 2 free throws in the span of 3.5 seconds, which is completely out of character for Jamal Murray. So that's frustrating if you're a Nuggets fan. But the fact that they were right there with the number 1 team in the East without all these players they're missing, it's just remarkable that they can keep doing this. Tonight's different. This Nuggets team should beat this Nets team. My expectation would be the Denver Nuggets winning tonight. And we'll see if they do. 7 o'clock tonight. If you want to hear the game, it is on Extra Sports 1300. There's one other thing that I wanted to get to. Oh, yes, this. One more potential suitor for Davis Webb services is out of the Davis Webb business. Eagles are hiring Packers QB coach. I think that's Sean Mannion. Yes. He's the only Mannion I know that has ever been in NFL circles. So I did guess that right. Sean Mannion, the Packers QB coach, is going to be the new OC in Philadelphia. And that's a big job, right? The Philadelphia Eagles have been on this cycle where they have 2 great coordinators. They win, get those coordinators stolen. They're not good. Then they get 1 coordinator back or get 2 coordinators that are good. And then they start winning. And then one of them gets poached. So this is a big hire for the Philadelphia Eagles. But the important thing in our world is that the name of the Eagles' new offensive coordinator is not Davis Webb. It is Sean Mannion. So where are we at? Vegas OC head coach options potentially for Davis Webb, although I really don't think the Vegas Raiders are serious about making Davis Webb their head coach. But Vegas, there's an opening. Baltimore, which I said, no matter what Sean Payton tells them, that's going to be a hard job to turn down if Jesse Minter offers it to him, to be able to be the offensive coordinator and play caller for Lamar Jackson. But Buffalo, you could be a non-play caller under Joe Brady. Josh Allen, great, but I think Davis Webb wants to call plays if he's going to leave the Denver Broncos. So Vegas, Buffalo, Baltimore, all offensive coordinator opportunities. And then there's the Broncos, which I just don't fully buy the idea that the Denver Broncos fired Joe Lombardi completely independent of Davis Webb's future. Now, I can believe that they didn't feel like they had to fire Lombardi because Davis Webb was getting interest. Like, oh, he's getting interest, we got to fire Lombardi. But this has to be about Davis Webb and giving him that job. But I guess, yeah, Sean Payton was just in one of those moods, as Joe Lombardi said. But I have a really hard time believing that this was done completely independently. I guess let me rephrase it. I think that the Broncos already had interest in Davis Webb becoming their offensive coordinator, and they also get to protect him from other teams because other teams can't make him the offensive coordinator if they make him their offensive coordinator. So we'll see. But another potential Davis Webb job taken by Sean Mannion in Philadelphia. Appreciate your time. We'll talk later.